In the last lecture, I mentioned there is a mismatch between the energies when electrons are flowing through the conductor. Let's discuss that right now. As you can see, electrons in a conductor flow from lower voltage to higher voltage at a steady rate. Let's give everything some values so that we can do some calculations. For simplicity of calculation, let's say each of these charges are -1 coulombs. And I have drawn them in sets of 3 because they are flowing at a rate of 3 charges per second. By that, I mean if you draw a line, you'd see every second 3 charges will pass through the line. So after 1 second, 3 charges would have passed the line, after 2 seconds, 6 charges, after 3 seconds, 9 charges, and so on. Okay, then what will be the value of current? Simply 3 times the charge, since current is the amount of charge flowing in 1 second. So we get -3 ampere. We get negative current to the left because we are dealing with negative charges. From lecture 6, we know that this is the same as positive current in the opposite direction. So we get 3 amperes of current. Notice that the positive current is always flowing from higher voltage to lower voltage. Let's say we are applying 10 volts voltage difference across the conductor. We can even use Ohm's law and calculate the resistance of the conductor. And we get 10/3 ohms. Keep these numbers in the back of your mind and we'll come back to them later. Now let's focus on that energy mismatch. So let's calculate the potential and kinetic energy of the electrons. When the electrons are at the 0 volt end, what will be their potential energy? Well, we know potential energy is equal to charge times voltage. So, for these electrons, we get a potential energy is 3 times -1 coulombs times 0 volts. That is just 0 joules. Now, let's resume the animation. After the electron reaches the other end, now what will be the potential energy? Again, using the formula Q times V, we get 3 times -1 coulombs times 10 volts, which is -30 joules. We get a negative potential energy, but that's okay, because negative or not, the potential energy went down from 0 joules to -30 joules. And of course, all objects want to have a lower potential energy. Remember, just because your household thermometer only shows from 36 to 38 degrees Celsius doesn't mean there's no temperature below 36. In fact, even temperature can be negative, and this is just like that, nothing else. So let me show the potential energy of the charges at different times in this way. Now you can clearly see that the potential energy is decreasing as the charge is moving. As expected, nothing unusual. What about kinetic energy? We have already discussed it in the last lecture that electrons move at constant average speed. And if the speed is constant overall, the kinetic energy will also be constant over time. So the kinetic energy doesn't change. This also seems okay, but when you think about the total energy, we get a mismatch. When we add up the potential and kinetic energy, this is what the total energy looks like. But it clearly shows that the total energy is decreasing over time. But we know that total energy should be constant, right? Then what's going on here? By the way, this only happens because the kinetic energy is not increasing inside conductor. In vacuum, for example, the electron's potential energy goes down just like before, but the kinetic energy profile is different because the electrons can accelerate there, and so their speed and kinetic energy keeps going up. Potential energy goes down and kinetic energy goes up, and so when we add them up, we get a constant total energy as expected. But in conductors, kinetic energy doesn't go up. Then where does this energy go? Well, the electrons don't have that energy anymore. They have lost it and it gets converted into other types of energy. and which energy it will convert depend on which device you use. For example, in a simple circuit with a battery and a light bulb, energy lost by the electrons gets converted into light energy. Some energy also gets converted into heat energy. That's why light bulbs get hot over time. Generally, there's always some heat energy if you do some energy conversion. Okay, so if you had used an iron instead of light bulb, all of your energy would be converted to heat energy. And if instead we used resistors like we do in labs, we'd also get heat energy out of it and it will get quite hot. If you remember, resistors are the same thing as conductors but often called such because of their relatively high resistance. You can think of other household appliances that convert lost electron energy into heat. In some appliances, that energy gets converted into sound energy. A good example is your speaker. So basically, just because the electrons feel some resistance while flowing, they lose that energy and we can convert it into whatever energy type we want. And that's why electricity is so versatile. The best part is we can even calculate how much energy we would get as output because that's the same amount of energy lost by the electrons. And we already did that calculation. We saw that electrons' potential energy goes from 0 to negative 30 joules, meaning they lose 30 joules of energy. So we will get 30 joules of energy from this set of electrons. But that's not all. We have electrons flowing continuously. So by the time the next set of electrons reach the end, we would get 30 joules more, total being 60 joules. And after the next set, we would have 90 joules of energy output. And our energy output will just keep growing more and more as long as we have electrons flowing. So if it was possible for the electrons to flow forever, we would get endless energy output. But that doesn't give us a nice number to describe how much energy we are getting. Instead, we say how much power output we get, which is just how much energy we get every second and measured in joules per second or watt, which for our example is just simply 30 joules per second or 30 watts, because if you remember, our energy was increasing by 30 joules every second, going from 30 to 60 to 90 and so forth. So it's just the total energy divided by total time. And since Q over T is current I, we can further simplify the equation of power to be current times voltage difference. Let's see how we would use this equation to get 30 watts of power output for our earlier example. Recall the numbers I told you to keep in the back of your mind. We got the value of current to be 3 amperes, and we can see that the voltage difference here is 10 volts. So multiplying them together, we get 30 watts of power, as expected. So simple, we don't even have to think about how much potential energy the electrons are losing and whatnot. Just plug the values of voltage difference and current, and you immediately get how much power output we are getting. In fact, this equation of power is applicable for any type of electrical or electronic device there is. If you are specifically working with conductors or resistors, you can even use Ohm's law and replace the voltage difference with IR and get a new equation. If you put our values of current and resistance, it would still give the same result as before. So you can use whichever equation you want. In fact, this equation is so cool you don't even have to think about which appliance or which type of energy conversion is taking place. Because from an electron's perspective, all they're doing is just providing some resistance and all the conversion just happens by itself. In fact, we use this one symbol to represent any of these resistive devices and call them resistors because that's all what they do. And also, instead of using battery, we could have used a plug from a socket and get the power and voltage we need. So from an electron's perspective, they're just providing voltage difference for the system. So we call them voltage source and denote them with these symbols. You have used the right one before, but the left one is preferred by engineers because it clearly shows the positive and negative terminals. And the green wire in the middle just provides connection between the voltage source and resistor. For simplicity of calculation, we just assume they're ideal conductors with no resistance at all and represent them with simple lines. Usually, this is close enough to real-life results, so we don't bother calculating wire resistance. Now you know why mathematicians are mad at engineers. But if the resistance is just too large to ignore, we could always treat them as resistors and calculate the actual result. No big deal. So if we had used these symbols to represent our simple circuit, this is what it would look like. This is so nice because it doesn't distract you from the actual information. You don't have to worry about whether that resistor is a light bulb or a speaker, or is that a rip-off of sunlight battery or not, stuff like that. Because quite frankly, what you should worry about is just the voltage and the current, and not the physical appearance. That's why this is called circuit abstraction, representing a circuit abstractly. By the way, a circuit is just the whole electrical system we are talking about. Representing a circuit like this gives you just the information you need to know about a system to calculate everything about that. If you ever want to relate an abstract circuit to a real-life one, just try to imagine light bulbs in place of resistance and batteries in place of voltage source, and that would be the exact same circuit. Okay, what else can this circuit do? We can throw some values at them and show what they really do. For example, this resistor has a resistance of 2 ohms, and this voltage source supplies a voltage difference of 1.5 volts. What this means is that the battery creates a voltage difference of 1.5 volts between the two ends of the resistor. Since you know both the voltage difference and the resistance, you can calculate the current using Ohm's law. And we get a current of 0.75 amperes. The direction of current will be from higher voltage end to lower voltage end. Always remember, current in conductors and resistors always moves from higher voltage to lower voltage. For resistors, it's always like that. So basically, electrons worth of 0.75 coulombs of charge are flowing through the resistor every second. And the same amount of current will actually flow through the whole circuit. Just recall the graphics animation. All the electrons were moving at the same rate, right? And that rate happens to be 0.75 coulombs per second, or 0.75 amperes. Let's do one more example to clear up the confusion. If we represented our earlier example with symbols, this is what it would look like. We calculated the resistance to be 10 over 3 ohms, and the voltage is 10 volts. We can also use Ohm's law here to get the current to be 3 amperes. You might be wondering, why did I just put a random voltage source there? Well, the thing is, while drawing the graphics, I didn't actually show where I was getting the 10 volts and 0 volts voltage from, because I couldn't find a good way to represent that. But with circuit symbols, I can. I just have to draw a voltage source symbol. That's why circuit symbols are so useful. So from this lecture forward, we will use circuit symbols instead of actual graphics. In the later videos, I will actually go ahead and give you some golden rules that you can use to always calculate the current and voltage from a circuit.